We're good? All right, we're good. Welcome to the first trial of doing a live computer science class. Today we're going to be going over how to make your own game in an application called Make Ready. It's super easy to use. It uses a very basic coding language that's kind of similar to Scratch. It's a little drag and droppy, but where it's actually really powerful is that it gives you full control of the input and output of the entire system, as well as it has a pretty comprehensive collision detection physics system built right into it. The other cool thing about this is if you want to then take your game and bring it into a more serious kind of game programming platform, such as Unity 3D, there's actually a integrated export feature to this, which means that if you really like your game and your friends like your game, then you can port it into Unity and then publish it everywhere from shareable online to even on your own Xbox. So the software is all completely free. Unity is free until you make about $100,000 a year or more, and then it costs like $1,000 a month or something like that. Happy problem to have, I think, but it's up to you guys. If you want to try and actually make a career out of that, that'd be pretty awesome. Tell them you got your start here. Anyways, moving on. So, in the description link that we have in YouTube down there, it has a link to where you can download ReadyMaker from the internet and get it on your computer. It works on computers, it works on Apples, it works on iPhones and also iPads, and it also works on Android devices. So it's pretty universal. Let me see. Outside of that, if you don't have it on your computer at the moment, that's fine. Follow along with the basic steps that I'll be giving you along today, and this video will be published on my channel so that you can see it a little bit later as well. Alright, cool. So if you have any comments or chats, let me know down in the comments. I can answer any questions. I have a friend of mine helping me out with that as well, just so I can keep up with any questions that you guys have. Alright, without any more hesitation, let's get started. Okay, so first off, the website that you want to get started with is getready.io. And from there you can see that there's an Android, Mac and iOS, Windows, and a web version. The web version's a little iffy. I personally prefer having the full software end of this. So if you're going to download it for Windows or a Mac, that's great. The iOS version does work. It's just a little bit trickier to drag and drop any assets that you have onto the screen. But aside of that, it's pretty easy. Once you get it set up and installed, you're going to open it up and you'll be presented with a screen. Now my screen already has a couple of games that I've made, so it makes it easy to teach other things, but right now we're just going to start off with a blank game. So in order to create a new game, you're going to hit this green little plus button up here. Just in case you guys try talking to me, I'm going to go in here. Okay, so we're going to hit this green plus, and then here we are. It asks if I want to make a landscape or portrait. I'm going to do landscape, but if you're doing a game for a phone or an app for a phone, you can hit portrait, and that works out even better. And then I hit start. I'll zoom in a little bit here. All right, here we have a blank canvas. Blank canvases are awesome because there's an unlimited amount of possibility that you can have. However, they're terrifying. The reason why they're terrifying is because there's nothing there for you to go off of, right? It is up to you to fill this space with whatever is in your imagination. So before we get started with what it actually looks like to physically make a game in here, let's talk a little bit about what a game actually is. So if we look in history, my favorite game growing up was this game called Pong. And basically, you had a little line here and a little line here, and then a ball, and the ball would go over, boop, smash off another one, boop, smash off the other pad. Now, the trick to this game was to make it so that you always made the ball hit off of your paddle. If your paddle moved out of the way and your ball went outside of the court, then you lost. It's a lot like playing a game of tennis, or air hockey, I guess. Very, very simple game, right? There's 2 lines and a ball, and that's about it. However, it was a fun game. The reason why is because there was interaction. I, as a player, had a very clear objective. My objective was to make sure that the ball did not pass outside of my paddle here, and instead I hit it every single time, returning the ball to the other side. Any game can be basically summed up into this, right? I have a simple objective, and I have a fairly simple task that is trying to keep me from that objective, in this case, the ball and the other player, and I must pay attention and try very hard to keep myself on task so that I win the game, or in some cases, don't lose the game. That's also an interesting point, right? What's the difference between a game that is meant to win versus a game that is meant to not lose? So if we look at Mario Brothers, or I don't know, Fortnite, if you're into Fortnite, the objective is to make it to the end, right? Either outlast everybody else or make it to the end of the map so that you win, kind of like a game of golf where you're trying to get through all the holes to get to the end, best score possible. A game where you don't lose is the objective is more like Flappy Bird. You can play that game literally forever. It never ends. Or that Google Dinosaur game, right? So I'm going to jump in here. And if I had... Oh, I can't do that because I'd have to turn off my internet. I apologize. If I had the Google Dinosaur game, right? That dinosaur will continue to run forever. Forever and ever and ever. And then I think someone actually made an AI for this game that made it so that the dinosaur never actually stopped running. It just kept going forever. So this is a game that you cannot possibly win. However, the objective then switches to, how do I not lose the game, right? How do I keep going forever and ever and ever? Anyways, so that's a little bit about what a game is. When you're thinking about creating your game, and I'm going to make this very open for you guys, you can make basically whatever you want. We're going to list a couple of criteria, or I like to call KPIs, in order to make it so that you know absolutely that it is a game. The first one is the one that you just talked about, okay? So that is, I know how to spell. You must be able to win, or at least try not to lose. If this is not true, then you do not have a game, you have an exercise in frustration, right? If the game is unwinnable, it'll get very old and very boring very fast, right? So make it so that there is a fairly clear objective and that you are working towards that objective, either to win the game or to survive as long as physically possible. A second criteria, must have user interaction. So what is the difference between watching a video game and playing a video game, right? The user has to be able to have some input into the system in order for it to, be a game. Otherwise, you're just watching a TV. So you can have your game have automations running back and forth, cool effects and stuff, explosions, everything like that. But if you can't actually have the user have some form of control over the game, it is not a game. All right. The last criteria that I'll have to have is and this arguably might not necessarily be necessary for it to be a game, but I think it's really important, so I'm going to mention it. Must have a story. Now, a story for a game is pretty... Without a story, it can get very easy to get very confused. So if you look at the dinosaur game from Google, right? That dinosaur is running its marathon. Its entire existence is to get as far as it can without smashing into something, right? Simple story. Run for your life. Maybe there's like a, I don't know, asteroid coming that he's running away from. That'd actually be really cool. Google if you're watching. I would love to see what he's running away from. Or she, I guess. Mario Brothers, again, is a classic example. Save the princess at the end of the castle. You keep getting to the new castle, and you have to find the princess in another castle because it turns out there was just a mushroom there. All of these games have kind of an idea or a concept behind them. And that's pretty important in order to engage with who your player is. If you just kind of have a random array of stuff going on the screen, the player will tend to lose interest pretty quickly because they don't really get what's going on, right? The story is what will pull them in. All right, enough of that. So from there, in a computer program, and basically in any computer program, not just a game, you have three basic systems that you're worried about. You have one, the input side of the house. So an input can look like a keyboard press, a mouse click. It could look like a joystick. If you have like an Xbox controller or something like that, you can move the joystick. Any of those kind of things. Phones actually have cool things because if they're here, they can tell if they're tilting back or forth. So some form of gyroscopic motion can also be a form of input. Anything that sends a signal into the computer from its user is considered an input. Processing is the computer game itself. That is what the game is thinking and how it's handling that input in relation to the rest of what the program is doing. So if I push a button, that button might cause me to pick up a cup of tea. And from there, there's game logic behind it that says, when I'm holding this cup of tea, take a sip of tea. I think that was a great segue because I really needed a sip of tea. The input is, again, push the button. As soon as I push the button, the computer processes that command and tells me to pick up the tea. In games, what this ends up looking like is if you press the up button, the character on the screen will jump. If you push the button in that direction, right, then the character will move to the right, back, and so on, right? So the input gives the computer the command that it then processes to give some form of output. The output stage here is me physically picking this up. So if I have, so the process goes input, press the button, it thinks about what I should do, and then the output is I will pick up the cup and take a sip of tea. There's another sneaky one in here that we'll get into a little bit later, which is why I left this thing blank. Just going to have to stay around till later to figure out what that next one is. All right, so now we know we need input, process, and output. It's the basics of computer science in a nutshell. Let's go into our tool ReadyMaker. So in here I have that blank canvas, right? Well, that's pretty boring. Let's add something. If we look around our interface here, there's a couple of buttons. The ones over here in the top right-hand side of the corner are the ones we're most concerned about right now. This plus button allows a whole lot of things that we can place onto the screen to appear. The plus means to add something to our game. So right now I have some artwork. You can look for animals. There's like cute baby owl and some polar bears, some characters, like the skateboard guy there, an astronaut. All right, well, let's see. I think I want my game to be space themed because I've been in here stuck in this space for a long time. So what I'm going to do is click and hold for a second, and then I will get my little spaceman. Boop. and there he is on here. So I could start adding a whole lot of different things onto here, but for now, let's just play with him for a little bit and see if we can get him to do something interesting. Test small, test early, test often. If you have a new thing that you've never used before, take a look at it for a minute and see what you can do with that one simple thing. Because if you start putting a whole lot of stuff on your screen all at the same time and you don't know how any of it works, it'll get pretty overwhelming and pretty complicated, confusing very, very fast. So let's go over here. Sorry, we had a question. Thank you. And I can do that. All right. So here we have our little astronaut. If I click on him, if you noticed, we have a whole lot of stuff over here popped up, which is kind of cool. We'll look at that in a little bit. I want to add my first input. So input in this particular application is handled by this little kind of stop sign looking guy over here, street sign looking guy. So if I click on that, I'm now presented with my input canvas. From here, I can ask very simple questions. When something does something, then I will have something else do something, right? All actions in basically all programs will launch off on some sort of interaction. So the question that we always have to say is, if this happens, then do this, right? So if an if statement, which is kind of what this is the most basic part of any programming language. If you can ask a question in your programming language, then you can make your program do anything for any instance that you could have, and you can differentiate what happens depending on what the user does. So let's see. Here I can ask if I want it to do something when the astronaut sees something. I can have it do something when the camera sees something, when the system, or a variable. We'll go about variables later. So I want to take an input, right? So let's say I want to make my my astronaut move to the right. Okay. So I want it to happen when my right key is being pressed. So that key is part of my system, right? It's physically on my computer, which means it's a system event. All of these events are local to each other, so an astronaut event will only understand something that's happening directly to the astronaut. The system will look to see at my physical computer, my system, and see what's happening to my system and get that as an input. So let's hit system. I'm going to be listening for a person to press a key. That's what we call it, is listening. And here I have a whole lot of options. Cool. There's a thing called decision paralysis where you have entirely too many options and then you have to choose. I think I'm going to do when a key is down, and then I'll choose the right arrow. So when the system hears that I have pressed down the key, the right arrow, then what do I want to do? I can make my astronaut, let's see, move, and then move sideways to the right. And I have no idea what the scale of this movement is. So what I mean by that is, right now, it says, sorry, I had a question? Yes. So right now, it's saying it will move right in amount, 0.18 in this case. I don't know if that's a tiny movement or a big movement. The best way to figure it out is to test. When I test, I like to test a little bit on the bigger side. So let's move it 1.9. See what happens there. Done. Okay. Now, in order to test my game, I hit this little button all the way up here, the little triangle. Click. I'm going to press my button. Boop. Okay. He definitely moves to the right, and he moves quite a bit to the right. So I'm going to pause my game and go back in. And now we can edit this action. So maybe maybe that means a meter. So move sideways, say 0.2. Let's see what that does. Doot, doot. Play again. Doot, doot, doot. That seems a bit more manageable. Cool. All right, so we've already just gotten started. We already have a character, which will be my player, I'm thinking, and we can make him move when I'm pressing a button on my computer. Awesome start. Still not quite a game, though, because he's still kind of, there's nothing for him to do. He's just miscellaneously wandering around on my playfield. So let's give him a very simple task. Let's make it so that he has to go over here and touch something. What would make sense for him to want to go to in space? Let's see what we have. We can have plants. We can have artwork, abstracts. Ooh, this black star. That kind of looks like a planet, kind of a menacing planet, but you know what it is. All right, so here is my new planet, and what I want him to be able to do is reach that planet. Nice. So let's see. Let's see what happens if I just play this. Okay. Well, he reached the planet, but he did not do anything once he got there. That seems sad. Okay. Well, maybe we have to tell him when he hits this thing to do something, right? So we already know where the coding lives. Let's go up over here, and let's add a new event. So when, if we're thinking about it, we want when the astronaut touches black star. So when the astronaut senses that is touching an object, black star. That makes sense, right? So when the astronaut is sensing something, and that sense that he is sensing is touching an object, and that object just happens to be black star 3, then do something. Don't know what that thing should be. Let's see what our options are. We can make the, let's make the astronaut, we'll say he's going home. So he's just going to go away. So let's see. We have appearance, set hidden. We can make him go away. And then yes. So if the astronaut senses that he's touching the star, then the astronaut's appearance will be set to hidden. Yes. Okay, let's try it. See what happens. Start. Uh-oh. Still doesn't work. So there is a saying. 10% of programming is writing code, and 90% of it is debugging, which I'm a big fan of that particular thing. Nothing ever works the first time, right? So resiliency is the most important feature of a programmer. It's okay. We can figure this out. All right. Let's start clicking around to figure out if we can find this out, right? So we have the astronaut. And I have this stuff over here. Physics. Okay. Activate. Ooh, okay. All right, so we activated physics for this guy. Let's see what that does. Dude. Maybe he needs to be a physical object, right? That kind of makes sense. Let's try. Well, he's got gravity. Nice. All right, let's, I seem to remember seeing in there that click him, click physics. I can turn off gravity. Cool. All right, let's try that for this guy too, just in case. Physics are on. Off gravity. Nice. Now let's see what happens. Doot. Hey! Look at that. I'm pressing the button a bunch, and he actually disappeared. Yay! So it turns out all he needed to be, in order to be able to tell that this guy was touching this guy, they both had to be physical objects. The way I like to think about it is the reason is if my friend the astronaut here was simply a ghost, because he was no longer a physical object, he could just pass through whatever star or wall he wants. So in order to make it so that he could actually be feeling things inside his physical world, he had to be a physical object. And in that case, that's where we click over to here, click on him, click over to physics, and then click on to activate physics. There's some other cool things here. If you notice, if I turn the gravity on, if I turn the gravity on, he falls straight down, right? All right, so this is kind of cool. Let's see if we can get it so that it activates something else. It's like right now it works, but I don't necessarily know that I won, right? Okay, so let's make it so that we have a new object. What can we add here? Let's see. We have artwork, background, effects, audio, all cool things, basic shapes. Let's see. Ooh, that's a lot of those. Okay. This kitty right here looks like they are really, really happy about what just happened. Yep, definitely happy. Or a spot. Nope, that's too trippy. Okay, happy kitty. So, happy kitty. Upload and save. I'm going to name him Happy Kitty. Yep. There's Happy Kitty. Yay. Okay. Let's click on him, and I can make Happy Kitty. So, what I'm going to do, this is my idea, right? The astronaut is going to be heading to Black Star. When astronaut hits Black Star, the entire world rejoices, setting up a gigantic display of the affection that they have for this astronaut returning home by launching a loving kitty to show the universe their happiness. It's a story. It's not a good story, but it's a story. All right. So, the first thing that we have to do, let's see what happens when I just play this. Okay. Happy Kitty is happy. Okay. I don't want the kitty to be seen right in the beginning, right? Because if I do that, that's confusing. He's not supposed to celebrate until the astronaut actually makes his way home, right? So let's see if we can figure out how to hide him at the beginning of the game. So, boop. Here is where the code lives. We have some code. All right. Let's add a new event. When the system runtime? Scene start. Haha. So when the system starts running, so when our game starts running, when the scene starts, then I can do something, such as set Happy Kitty, make his appearance set hidden to be true. So it's the exact same thing we did with the astronaut before. When he touched an object, we set him to be hidden. Now we're doing the exact same thing for Happy Kitty, for it to be when the game starts, he is hidden. And this is how you can place all sorts of objects onto your game without actually having them all be on the screen at the exact same time. So if you're making a hooray banner for when something, when the game is finished, you can have it all hidden in the beginning and then it pops up later. Or if you have enemies that you want to make show up on your screen after each one is destroyed, you can do it this way as well. So let's see what happens from that. Again, test often. Yay, Happy Kitty is gone. However, if I go over here, we have our astronaut disappear successfully, but Happy Kitty does not appear. So Let's go back into our code. Now we have to figure out how to make it so that Happy Kitty shows up when the astronaut is sensing that he's touching the object. Now we already have an if statement for this, right? So we have an if astronaut senses is touching Black Star, then make him go away. We can also use this event when this happens to trigger another thing. So what we'll do is add a second thing to happen when this happens. And we do that just by adding this little plus button here. So when the astronaut is sensing that he's touching an object, Black Star 3, then the object, Happy Kitty, will set his appearance from hidden to false. So astronaut's appearance will be set into true, and Happy Kitty's appearance will be set to false. And computer science note here, this is called a Boolean operation. A Boolean or a binary operation is when you have something that can be either one of two states. So in this case, it can either be yes or no. So it's one of two states. True or false, 1 or 0, all these things. So we get into binary too, if you've ever heard that term. Binary is how computers hold information. It's a 1 or a 0. They don't know how to count much past that because it's literally a physical wire in your computer either turning on or off, just like a light switch. So we've set the astronaut appearance set hidden to the binary choice of yes or true. Happy Kitty's appearance set hidden to the binary choice of false or no. So let's give this a shot. Play. Doop. Yay! And we have successfully won our game. And assuming that the players are really happy seeing that Kitty kind of lovingly show up, they might be interested in playing your second level. So we've been on for about a half an hour now, and I've given you a lot of information about how to set up this game. Think about it. It doesn't seem like a lot right now, but you know how to place a character on your game. You know how to make that character move, right? We only made a move in one direction to the right, but you can make a move up, down, left, right, any direction that you want using the same exact code. We've also figured out how to make it so that we can tell when our object is touching something. So we've taken input, and now we have a way of handling that input so that it can give some form of output that is meaningful for us, right? This kitty popping up, for instance, right? And we've learned how to create things that happen only when specific events hold true, such as kitty popping up and saying hello. You can make a full game from this pretty easily. And it's where I'm going to end today's lesson. So my challenge to you is to play around with this game, play around with a ReadyMaker, and use these concepts to come up with a very simple game that is your own. Come up with an idea for what that story should be. In my case, I think I'll call my game The Valiant Journey Home, where the astronaut is trying to get back to their planet, and then everyone is happy, which is noted by Happy Kitty. You can come up with a game, could be an astronaut, could be a swimmer trying to get back to dock. Could be a boat trying to fare the weather of the seas to get to rescue someone else. So instead of this astronaut and Black Star, you could have a boat and someone who's over here trying to be rescued, right? Instead of Happy Kitty, it could be a text message that says, "You've won." Come up with an idea, and it doesn't even just have to be one thing. If you had this guy, and you had several different objects around here, you can make it so that this guy has to get from here to the end without touching any of the other objects, right? Those are just some ideas. I encourage you to come up with an idea, come up with a game plan, and make it. Actually make it. Spend some time today coding, spend some time today making this game. And once you do, hit inside the comments, down there in the YouTube comments, take a screenshot of your computer and send a picture of it. Or just type in what you've got an idea for your game, right? If you have an Instagram, access to Instagram, you can share a picture of it on Instagram, tagging at Real World Digital, and then use the hashtag, oh, I should have thought of this, CS Lesson Live. So I'll put that up on here. So tag at Real World Digital using the hashtag CS Lesson Live. And from that, we can start building up a community of cool games that are out there. There is a way to export these games so that others can play it. So it's actually a ton of fun. It's super easy. Join me again tomorrow, actually, and we'll go over a little bit more about how to play with the gravity settings within ReadyMaker and how to make it so that your character can move around, bouncing on and off of objects. So if you wanted to make like a runner style game, how you would make that. Anyways, I look forward to seeing what you guys are creating. Thank you so much for joining me here on this lesson. I hope you guys are having a great time at home, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Have a great day.